Time you've been waiting for when you take a look at the headlines. And this morning we're privileged to have on my left to start off with Senator Mutula Kilonzo from Makueni County. Good to have you, sir.
Good morning.
Yes. And for the very first time on our news review panel, we have Noah Mahalanganga Wekesa, a former cabinet minister, former MP for Kwanza, and most recently former co-chair of the Jubilee Steering Committee. Good to have you, sir, on this review panel.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes. On my right, we have familiar faces on the panel, Senator Boni Halwale from Kakamega and Kimani Wamatangi from Kiambu County. Very interesting headlines, gentlemen, this morning. Chickengate scandal is back. There's a bill on sexual offences that has gotten received the nod from MPs. House team has also approved a pension plan for MPs, and this one comes with huge ramifications. This one will probably even affect you, Bwana Noah Wekesa, because anyone who served in Parliament between 1984 and 2002 will receive a pension of 100,000 shillings backdated back to 2010. Yes, we'll be discussing that as well as what MPs are demanding for. A send-off package that could amount to about 3 billion shillings, including salaries for the 8 months between August, when the elections will be held, until March next year, which they're arguing is part of their term. Yet they will not be working, but they'll have to be paid because they've approved it. Wow, this is the country. Now, senators have also dismissed the 4th Devolution Forum. I don't know why they're still fighting governors. Voter listing. DP Ruto says he's smelling victory already because the numbers are looking good from his end. And there's something to do with Bukusu negotiated democracy. I've seen something, such a headline in the dailies today on page 20 of the Standard. Hopefully we'll have time to discuss that. Plus, the biggest story of the day, the revolt in Wiper. Wow. What is happening to Bwana Kalonzo Musyoka? We have Senator Mutula Kilonzo to tell us exactly why they are fighting. Why they are fighting. Now, on the headline this morning, let's start off with the Standard. New stringent KCPE rules released. Registration period is slashed by half as Examinations Council introduces regulations on county codes, names, and repeat candidates. Very interesting headline there. Read that story on page 4 of the Standard. Also on the front page of the Standard, Senator with smoking gun. We're talking about your colleague, the nominated Senator Paul Njoroge Ben. You know, of course, what happened in Naivasha. Very unfortunate incident. I'm sure you as politicians and members of Parliament, you have your own security arrangements. I hope they checked you before you came in here, because we do take our security very seriously here at Citizen TV.
I don't carry a gun, so...
Are you telling members of the public that you're not protecting yourself?
No. I'm not armed. I'm the blood of Jesus working for me so far.
I think you better have one. And it has worked very well. You asked me. You asked, when we go out, you ask me what has happened to me in the... He knows about it.
So carrying a gun is very important for
people. Came to kill me. People came to my house to kill me. Wow. And I had to react. We had to kill them instead.
Wow.
This was on electioneering matters or what?
Yes, it was over electioneering.
At home. Of land.
Yeah. Right here in Nairobi.
In Nairobi.
Wow.
And I remember the first person to say Pole was the Minister for Finance at that time, who is our president. Yes, I was on TV and they sent me.
Well, it is a story to be discussed. Probably we could mention it as we move on. The splash on the Daily Nation today. Raila team sets out terms for Paul Body. Of course, the opposition chiefs met the IEBC yesterday at Capitol Hill, and they resolved a few things. There on the front page of the Daily Nation as well, down there, they're talking about the Chickengate scandal. We're seeing the return of the Chickengate scandal. And yesterday, Tredio Yombra, the representative of the Smith & Usman company, British printing firm, alongside former CEO of the IEBC, James Oswago, and a staffer at the IEBC, were arrested and arraigned and released on bail, charged with bribery, allegations of bribery to do with the printing of ballot papers. I don't know if we could say something briefly about this. We are seeing a return. This is one of the first few cases that we are seeing being revived since the retired Anglican Archbishop Eliud Wabukala took over the EACC. And could we credit the Archbishop with this renewed fight against corruption?
Yes, this thing was never finalized. There was more to it than we read in the newspapers. Courts in Britain did what they did, and we seem to have ignored it here. And I think this is the right way to go. Definitely, there was a lot of stories about bribery. I happen to know this farm, Usman and
Smith and
Usman. In fact, I know the old man, and I know the son. I did actually, when I was Minister for Education, I did actually visit their factory in Bournemouth, and I know them very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but they never gave me any money.
It's good that you clarified that, because now the questions are going to start. Senator Kilonzo.
You can't credit Wabukala, because if you follow the proceedings of the Joint Select Committee, the ESCC handed over the file to the DPP at the time. Senator Boni Halwale and I were very miffed at the way they wanted to make sure that we didn't have the material. They did everything possible to ensure that that material did not land at our desk at the time when we were investigating the commissioners. But what the documentation that we have, which includes proceedings and the judgment, indicate that even the commissioners themselves, the ones who were mentioned, are culpable. To the extent, therefore, that I am not impressed by the fact that James Oswago is carrying the burden on their behalf. There is even evidence and credible mention of commissioners whose hotels bills were paid by the bribe giver. So at the point where the DPP or whoever it is who made the recommendation has himself absorbed the commissioners who are mentioned in the report adversely, because the charge sheet that had led to the old man and his son to be jailed mentions commissioners. So how we can have a contradiction that now it's only Oswago and another lady mentioned, and I don't know how the magistrate allowed the lady to cover her face throughout the court proceedings. I don't know when she was called, when they called her name, how the magistrate confirmed it was her or whatever. But the fact is that this is also another cover-up. Everybody denied that Chickengate existed, but the charging of Oswago is a cover-up, because when it was a conspiracy, Oswago was the third tier when you read the proceedings carefully. So it's good that finally somebody has admitted there was Chickengate, because at the time we were interrogating this matter, everybody refused to acknowledge it. But more importantly, the prosecution in this country, beginning from the days of the Githunguri case, has always been done in a way to ensure that justice is not served. And this is one of those.
This is one of those.
Yeah.
Of course, yesterday we
Charge
saw
the wrong people.
We saw James Oswago throwing a tantrum as he left the ESCC offices and saying no proper investigations have been done. But then again, this is at ESCC, so we could still credit Eliud Wabukala, because we're not seeing it directly from the DPP, but from the ESCC. They're the ones who conducted the raids, arrested these individuals yesterday, and took them to court.
Of course, I've never had an opportunity to congratulate the bishop for landing this job. But how does he come in? He has nothing to do with it. Where it has reached, and having sat on the Joint Parliamentary Committee, in fact, we faced the commissioners and told them, do you want to be dragged through this mad for us to justify that you must exit? Or would you like to exit honorably? So they chose to exit honorably so that they are not dragged through the mud. To my mind,
that is what is happening.
To my mind, that was a realization that it was so bad that they didn't want to go through it. And I remember one of the lawyers, I don't want to say his name, he told us off the sittings that the criminal aspect of this matter does not end simply by virtue of the by dint of the fact that they have resigned. So I am demanding, right from the chairman to whoever the other commissioners are who are mentioned in that scandal, they should also be arrested and charged.
But now, Senator, there's something very interesting you said, because I remember while we were covering that joint steering committee, joint select committee that came up with this, and they worked on how the commissioners would leave office. There was an issue of, there was a clause about if they agree to leave, they would not be held accountable or culpable for actions they did a while back. Are we seeing that now? That probably because you're not seeing any of those former commissioners being charged in court. Is this the result of this? That we're now seeing the former CEO, Trevor Yombra, who is never a commissioner, and another staffer who are not part of the commissioners who exited through this negotiated deal?
The report of the joint committee was not confidential. It's a public document. And nowhere in that document have we given immunity
for prosecution
against these people.
Okay. No, well, I think to begin with, I would want to say that our criminal justice system has got a very clear road path that it must pass through, and part of that is investigations, then prosecution, but there has to be the threshold of proof that these crimes were actually committed that is met at the point when all sides have been heard, and I think to begin with it is good that we say that as clearly as possible, that at this particular time some people have been charged, but the truth will be known when this is heard. But to revert to what you just asked lastly, I believe that when the committee was envisaging or saying that the commissioners may not be charged for some of their actions, I believe it was not intended to mean that they would not be charged for criminal activities they may have undertaken, or some that may move that way. But I believe that was a goodwill clause, so to say, whereby
which could be misinterpreted to include such things.
Because you see, in the electioneering process, there are so many other things that happen. I mean, somebody could just come and claim that ballot papers were transported this way, or they were stuffed. I mean, a lot of things can arise. And if you don't cushion those people against such, then definitely...
You don't think that probably that cushion could be used in this case? Probably we are misinterpreting that cushion that was very general.
No. There was no cushioning. There was no cushioning at all. No cushion ever existed. And let me tell you why. In fact, the Chickengate one, we were given a runaround. The Attorney General appeared before us and told us, I have received this file in its entirety. And I am willing and available to give it to you to interrogate it.
Yes.
When the EACC came, they said, no, this file has already been handed over to the DPP. In fact, at that time, what they did, and I thought, and I remember asking this question, that it was deliberate, that they first of all absolved the commissioners from any liability, and then forwarded the file to the DPP. When the DPP came, and Tobiko was beautiful English, he said, I cannot disclose what I'm investigating. I cannot give you any material because it will jeopardize my investigation. It will jeopardize my findings. So in strict legal sense, the committee never touched anything on Chickengate. We were not given any material. But on general liability of the commissioners, what was supposed to be our agenda number one, we returned a no verdict. We didn't.
So you did not. We
made no finding.
We made no finding.
Yes.
Because we were alive to something called Fred Ndimuli called double jeopardy. Yeah. We were alive to
someone twice for the same offense.
You can't not judge vex.
Ndimuli, so that it doesn't look like we are leaving the impression that the committee gave immunity to these commissioners. Let Kenyans know that the person whose word is final on this one is the DPP. And under the Constitution, the office of the DPP is completely independent.
I think it's up to the media now to go and really scrutinize that report by the Joint Select Committee, because there could be a loophole here and there.
We are telling you on authority.
Okay. On page 3 of the Standard, there's a bill on sexual offences. I think we discussed it, parts of it a few weeks ago. It's been given a nod. A bill on sexual offences gets nod from MPs. Now, these are some of the headlines that we usually miss when you look at news review. You just look at the splash, and when guns are concerned, it's very exciting. But MPs have actually approved a bill that has made radical proposals to tame sexual harassment of girls and women. Most of them supported the Sexual Offences Amendment Bill of 2016, sponsored by Busia County MP Florence Mutua, which seeks, among other issues, to redefine what amounts to indecent acts. Now, this, I know, generated a lot of debate in Parliament. I'm sure it's yet to come to the Senate.
No.
But I'm sure it will come. Probably if you've been following that debate, are we going in the right direction? Because now some members are, we're even talking about how people should dress. How far up should the hem of the skirt go? It's no longer my dress, my choice. Some of the issues that we'll be discussing.
It never has been.
I wouldn't want anybody to tell me how I should dress, or tell my wife how she should dress. That is, the lawyers will tell you this is going against my rights as a Kenyan. But I've not been following this bill. But I think there is a lot of things that we can discuss in this bill that will actually help our people. I'll give you an example. Many times we read a 7-year-old has been raped, and you know, the matter is just taken locally. You know, wazee wataka. And this victim will live with that for a long time. If I was to give an opinion, I would say rapists should go to jail for many years, so that we keep them away from our children, we keep them away from our wives, because I don't know, the senators are here.
And of course, one of the biggest debates that came from this amendment bill was the issue of defilement, where the age of consent was to be reduced. And remember, last week we were discussing that. And the MPs had said they would correct that, they would remove that clause and probably come up with a different way of handling the issue of young boys being sent to jail for defilement, yet they were having sexual relations with their own age mates. But now, coming back to this other issue, because it really generated a lot of very exciting debate from Parliament, even the Speaker asking questions like, okay, so if I'm standing upright in a matatu and a woman is standing next to me, what happens if the driver applies the brakes abruptly? And these are some of the discussions we're having, because that is what is being defined, even touching contact between a man and a woman in public, in a train, in a bus. This is what is being discussed. Do you think it is necessary to legislate some of these things, Senator?
Decency, common decency doesn't need to be legislated. But you know, since we live in Africa, where there's no common decency, there are some people who have ended up in a washroom in Europe, the wrong washroom, and you are charged in court for various offences. But let me say what worries me: what the debate should be. In my capacity as senator, I've encountered minimum of 5 cases, like Waziri is talking about, where a girl has been defiled and raped, and the chief and the relatives agree on a payment mode. Or in a recent case where the police then interfere with the evidence, the girl is then given told to go to hospital, and then is given medicine to treat sexually transmitted diseases. What worries me is that we have not found a method of ensuring that the evidence of rape first or defilement is preserved properly to the extent that it can lead to a conviction. In most cases, you cannot, when the examination is done a day after, 2 days thereafter, you then cannot have a conviction for rape, because that evidence and material is not available. That is what worries me, because we are concentrating on the wrong things, but we are not concentrating on corrective measures. We are concentrating on possibly preventive measures and not corrective measures. We should be having cases of what Waziri has talked about, that we have a record of 10 people who have been jailed for life, like the one I'm talking about who comes from Boni, jailed for life for infecting a young girl. Yet the family and the chief had agreed and had exchanged 100,000 shillings. We should have statistics of those cases, so that then people can understand that this is a serious issue and people will be punished for doing it.
Because we appear to be taking this matter lightly. And even the debate, and I think probably the mistake was how the bill was drafted, because we saw MPs discussing the issue of winking, and whether or not it should be defined as a sexual offense. Now, that's a kind of debate at parliamentary level, as opposed to what Senator here is saying, that there are deeper issues that we should be handling. But it appears like a joke. We're trying to define more and more things that could be sexually offensive.
If this bill comes to the Senate, then it will be offering me the second opportunity to speak to it. When it came the first time through an effort by Justice Ndungu, I was very clear that if you do not understand what you are attempting to achieve, you might even end up criminalizing courtship. It's normal for a boy who wants to court a girl to wing. It is normal for a boy who wants to send a slightly extra message to attempt to touch a girl. So you can end up criminalizing courtship, and if you put their punishment in a normal courtship behavior, you end up jailing our youth. So we will need to look at it very comprehensively, and I'm glad that in the Senate we have serious people like Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Omar Hassan, who have a lot of time for research or when such a bill comes, and we can assure members of the public that the joke I saw going on in the National Assembly will not be the case. I'm not saying they are jokers, but the joke I saw going on in the National Assembly will not be the case. You see, when you now want to criminalize ogling, you know, then what is society? In fact, that phrase which the speaker used yesterday about the driver applying emergency brakes, that was my quote. When I was telling Yogi, look, we are in a bus, a girl is in front of me, we are holding the rail like that, and when the brake pop up, I pump into her bottom. I can be jailed. So these things,
can't believe this.
These things, they're more complex than the jokes I see people making out of them.
It is something that generates laughter, as you can see.
I wanted to say something before Matangi. I'm in a committee. I don't know whether Bonnie is in the committee with me, of prisons. Select committee
I'm with
of prisons. And there's a prison in Kakamega called Shikuza. Boston institution. There are over 430 young men in that Boston institution, half of whom have been charged with the offenses of courting, like Senator Halwala is talking about. So it's a serious issue.
Senator,
I wanted to say that.
I was reminding myself, remember there was a time one of the judges in the High Court ruled and gave orders that the wife of a man who had gone to court must give that man his conjugal rights as a court order.
and it's part of the law, bro.
And I know. I mean,
it's called restitution.
What I'm addressing by it is precisely, the spirit and the heart of of legislation when it comes to what Bonnie is talking about. You know, matters of community, of relationships, of how people should live. Because, you know, that judge, you know, for all practical purposes, cannot be able to enforce that order. I mean, you know, I mean, how would he go to the bedroom and say, yesterday? I mean, so we are over-legislating. The point I was just going to make is that you know the boundaries between legislation and what are acceptable social norms and behavior. There has to be some boundary that we respect, and especially when you speak about the matter introduced about dressing. That should we say this is my dress, my choice, and should we legislate on it? Okay. Probably myself, as I said in the last debate here, I think there's something that's a little old-fashioned in me, I must admit to it, because you know, I look at, for example, the cultures that have been maintained by certain groupings, like the religion of the Muslims, and I have a lot of respect for them, because they have refused to be swept away by the fads and tides of fashion and fitting in, and you still find that they want to, at the end of the day, retain a very important part of their social fabric
without necessarily having a law.
That is, yeah, and you know, this is something I would wish also for my people, because tell me about my dress, my choice, and you know, I say to my daughter, I have you know, one who is growing up very fast. You know, it can be your dress, your choice, but my daughter, you cannot come to me in our sitting room when you are dressed in a tumbo cut that I'm seeing you all the way downwards. You're my daughter, and it could be your dress, your choice. You know, I would say to students in class, you remember
to parenting and not
yes, and that's what I'm saying. That once we attempt to go that way, would do the wrong things, that legislate and say that you can dress anyhow. It's your dress, your choice, and it is in law. So I mean, you walk on the streets and you find these days, just go to Kenyatta Avenue and see what happens on a Saturday. You know, I mean, you find that we are losing it as a people. Lastly, on this question of behavior, and Bonnie referred to winking. If you wink, you could be deemed to have committed an offense. And look at even the definition in communication language. I'm sure you looked at some of that. You know, a wink can mean 1,000 things. I can wink at you just to signify that there's something the two of us know that the others don't know, and that's a wink. I could wink at you saying, let's take off. You know, I mean, I could wink. I mean, a wink means a million things. Why would a girl go to court and say that he winked at me, and a judge will just say this man winked? Your wink could have meant anything. So it's absolutely misplaced, if you ask me. I mean, there are things, there are territories we'll never be able to go to and come up with a law that is going to be just. And unfortunately, most of the time, let me say this, men happen to be the ones on the receiving end. Okay.
Well, this bill has been given a note by MPs, so it is very likely that it will come to the Senate in a matter of time.
I just wanted to appeal to Honorable Florence, the owner of this bill, that he should not attempt to run away from that which is supposed to be provided for by good parenting, that which is supposed to be provided for by respecting our cultures, and want to go to legislation as an alternative. What do I mean? If you take, for example, the Luya circumcision, boys are prepared in such a way that they see that the only woman you can sleep with is the one who has given you consent, that you don't rape. The mothers, as they grow their children, the fathers, as they grow their children, you educate them and ensure that they see the values of not raping another person. So when you abandon those avenues and you go into legislation, you create a landmine where unsuspecting youth will end up in jail.
Okay. Wow, very interesting discussion. I hope it gets to the Senate to see the kind of debate that you will have. We saw the kind of debate that was there in the National Assembly and
the Senate.
We'll have to wait for that. Let's move on now to other headlines. And the a big one as well. This is on the page 6 of the Daily Nation as well as page 7 of the Standard. Let's take a look at the Standard on page 7 and see what they're talking about here. It has to do with the parliamentarian still. Former lawmakers to be paid 3 billion shillings. Taxpayers should be prepared to pay current and old MPs a total of 6 billion after the next budget. Now, former MPs could soon receive a financial windfall after a House committee recommended that they should receive 3 billion shillings compensation for the years they served in Parliament. The 370 MPs who served between 1984 and 2002 will each receive approximately 8 million shillings as compensation. That's a good amount, in a first step towards addressing the plight of former lawmakers, some of whom frequent Parliament seeking handouts from sitting MPs. The report by the Trade and Finance Committee asked Treasury to factor the payment in the 2017-2018 budget as it sought to put to rest a long-running tussle between former lawmakers and Treasury on compensation. Now, this means that the MPs will receive 100,000 shillings each to be calculated from June 2010. Now, surely at a time when we head into elections, the doctors are on strike and the government cannot really pay them. There's so much, and I think one of the papers actually said that that amount, 2.9, could actually pay for the leasing of this medical equipment for quite a while. Yes. Is it really a priority to start thinking of paying former members of Parliament? But I know, I guess you are a former member of Parliament. I know if this thing passes, you will get to benefit. But do you really think it is a priority right now? Because Parliament has its way of actually arm-twisting Treasury and forcing them to pay. Because that's what they've done with their extra pay at the end of this term. That for the 8 months they've said, if at all you do not approve that payment, we will not pass the next budget. So Treasury is being arm-twisted towards some of these things. Do you think it is a priority that this country right now needs to pay former parliamentarians money as much as 8 million per MP?
Well, I can say that as a former parliamentarian, I'm very broke right now. I could do with some money, but I know that I did get my pension when I finished with Parliament. I don't know what these other payments they are talking about. Maybe there are former members of Parliament who did not qualify for pension. But as far as I'm concerned, I got my pension.
And you're comfortable with the amount you receive?
Yes, it pays my for my drugs and whatever. So I'm quite happy with that. But if indeed the lawmakers want to discuss those members of Parliament who never got anything, I can't comment on that. But for me, I'm quite okay.
Because we do understand some former members of Parliament receive as little as 2,000 shillings as pension. Some of it goes to about 14,000 shillings as pension monthly. Now, 100,000, fine, it will go back, but that means going forward, every month they'll start receiving 100,000 shillings, Senator.
No, it's fair you tell the public about how pension works, because pension all over the world, it's a labor issue, is something that is factored in when a person begins to work, and therefore at the end of the term or retirement, whichever the case may be, therefore there is an amount of money that has been set aside throughout that period that would allow you to live a decent life after your work. There is a second general statement is that there is also another category of people who worked in the what used to be called the county councils and municipal councils, and a petition was brought to Parliament through the Labour Committee and the Senate actually, and they were complaining of the same thing. And the third thing is that there are former members of Parliament who actually find their way into Bunge, and when you look at them, you actually hate the job, because if that is how I'm going to end up after I finish, then I would rather leave. Because this idea that members of parliament become beggars after they leave office leaves a very bad taste in my mouth.
But that's a reality. But quite a number of them
but it's a reality. They will come over lunch, you find them all over parliament, even very old MPs that were there a long time ago. I remember a former MP from Boni, Frederick Kalulu, before his death, used to spend a lot of time even in Bunge. It is something wrong about the system and how how legislators end up after they serve. Senator Boni Halwale's phone will ring continuously until the day he loses. His phone stops ringing, nobody goes to his home. Nobody cares about him. He walks on the street, nobody cares about him. But now everybody wants bursary from him, and they don't care where he's going to get the money from. So there's a problem about how we are handling legislators and people who work in the public service. So let's look at pension from the perspective that Mheshimiwa Noah Wekesa, look at him in good health. He worked hard, spent a lot of time doing public service, and therefore we should factor in pension before somebody commences the work. As to the question of timing is also something that ought to be addressed. But there's one thing that happens to members of parliament. They always look overpaid, but they are overworked, and everything they get, even a coin, is criminalized. So I'm saying the pension issue has been brought, first of all, the timing is wrong, obviously, because the country looks like it has other priorities. I'm representing doctors, and I mean, if you are arguing a doctor who went to class with Senator Boni Halwale, I was with him in court, and you're arguing about whether he should be paid 150,000 shillings. I mean, it's criminal. That somebody who spent so much time has become an expert, is a surgeon, is in the same class as Boni Halwale. Boni Halwale is well off, he's not. And then we're talking about getting more money. It's just the timing. The timing is wrong. The principle is not wrong, but the timing is wrong.
Yes, Senator Halwale. This is a difficult one to discuss, for the reason that if an MP at the end of his term, he appears to be rich, the public will say, that was a thief. He was stealing our money. And if he ends up appearing poor, people say, that was a fool. He didn't know how to manage his life, look the way he's looking like. Let me come to Honorable Wekesa. Whatever money Wekesa has gotten, and there are many Wekesas who are getting this money, it is because there is no lacuna in the law about how to manage MPs once they have been elected and after they lose. It has been thought out, it is in law, it says not everybody can be paid. You have to qualify for it. So Wekesa qualified because he did more than one term. So any MP who does more than one term qualifies for pension. And those ones who lose at the end of the first term, they are given terminal benefits accruing from the 5 years that they have served. So members of the public, do not be misled by the media. The media is putting hype. I don't see 3 billion will be spent. The people they are talking about is not Wekesa. They are talking about a small portion of MPs.
What about this amount for 100,000?
Can I? They are talking about a small portion of MPs who served before that law came in force. So there is an attempt by members of parliament to address it, so that the case of the former MP from Boni that Mheshimiwa is talking about does not obtain. So just figures should not give the impression to the public that members of parliament, including Wekesa, Junior, and Kimani and myself, who are now there, we are about to rob the public.
The cover.
They are addressing a small fraction of people. And I'll tell you, I know where you come from. There was a member of parliament. There was a member of parliament, and we attended his burial with Mheshimiwa Wekesa. And do you know, when we buried him in the scheme, his wife did not come, his children did not come. They had disappeared to the US. I remember Jirongo had to underwrite the entire bill, because that MP used to live in this town wearing slippers, one blue, another red. it is that bad. So that little fraction of members of parliament, if they are addressed once and for all and it goes away, it shouldn't.
But that's just one of the part of the problem.
That's
just part of the issue. But going forward, Senator Matangi, it means that every person who serves in parliament then receives 100,000 shillings monthly. Do you think that's sustainable, given the high number? How many are you now?
There are many.
Well, many.
There are many.
100,000 shillings even after you leave office monthly?
Well, Fred, let me speak of my own experience. Maybe it will help enlighten this and inform the debate. You know, before I came to Parliament, now I'm 4.5 years, almost 4.5 years old in Parliament. I have been a businessman. I grew my businesses from doing anything that a man ought to do.
and excluding those people.
I mean, and eventually I had my small business and I got into community building. That's how I became Wamatangi, as you know the story, and contributing to society. And when I came into Parliament, looking back now, I would say this. One, that if somebody came and put a gauge, if there was a gauge that would average, was I better off then financially than I am now, I would answer to the affirmative. Yes, I was better off then.
Of course.
I would tell you this one thing, and you can put this on record, that to survive in this job, you have to be big-hearted, very big-hearted. Very. Because you know why? You receive all your money as it is. Call it whatever you want. That's 600,000, and then after taxation you have 500,000, and that amount of money, my friend, you go to the community there, you find a woman who is suffering, and there's the money you have in your hands, and like us senators, you don't even have a penny, but you must do something as a leader. They have elected you and entrusted you, so you go back to your pocket and you cough out what you have. Before you get home, you go and find another young man, bursary. You look at him and there's no other bursary he has to, you go and give it. You will receive calls about people who are in hospital. Let me summarize.
Clearly, you can see where this discussion is going.
Let me summarize this.
You're in unison.
Let me summarize this for you, my brother. Let me summarize
you
this
didn't ask for a vote for it.
That's right. Let me summarize it for you. You know, I happen to have been in this town doing some of my businesses, and I would want this and a lot of apologies before I say it to the family of the late Paul Gay. I happened to have meeting that legislator many times in his final days. And I say this from the bottom of my heart.
Terrible.
It is no way, that is no way for a man who has been who he was, having done all the work he did for this country, dead and did all the things that he did, to die that way is wrong. It is bad. So you know, let me tell you, Fred, the judgment that is passed on members of parliament, let me tell you, you have to get inside there and get to understand it. And remember, you know, I used to, and my apologies again, I used to pass so many times around Insurance Plaza, and I would find young people pointing at a politician there who used to be called Oma Muga. I'm sorry to mention names. But the professor, and then they say he was once a minister, he was once a what, and we look at him, young people. Young people, my friend. Really.
So I think we are all in agreement.
We have to say.
I got.
You are in agreement.
I got.
On that note,
yes. I got to talk with a young member of parliament who was mentioned as a person of interest on the current land saga. Because I had the documents, I told him, "What are you doing in this? You are just 2.5 years into politics." He told me where I come from. My people expect that I be smart. I have to get this plot, sell it, so that I don't look poor.
My goodness.
The public should take a bit of responsibility for these unreasonable expectations of their members of parliament.
Wow, dear viewers, where
and
going? I think this one is going to pass.
Important. Yes. What you should be asking us today is not this one that is supposed to be paid to deserving old men who are former MPs. The money which is obnoxious at the moment is the money that members of parliament are here are attempting to pay themselves.